I don't think I've ever met another person, myself included, who's bought property and hasn't gone, oh, I wish I had have had that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what do you think someone similar to you before you started would be struggling with most?
Good question. I mean, we've obviously expanded a lot of it. It's just your mindset. To be honest. A lot of it is like how you look at property, but then you look at the financial backing to support that.
So if you were to try and sum that up in a sentence, how would you sum it up?
Also sum it up is that you can get into the property game.
Yep.
It's just that you've got to do a lot of like self-work to get there.
Yep.
And self-work is obviously the financial literacy.
Yeah.
And having more curiosity how to get there.
So hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to the First Home Foundations podcast. My name is Lee Anderson Voigt, and that is how you know my parents had a sense of humour. My guest today is none other than Pep Karalus. So Peps is my very good friend. He is the owner of Kinematics Performance or Physio. Are you Kinematics Physio now?
Kinematics Health and Performance.
Kinematics Health and Performance.
Yes.
So the only people that I trust with my body. So if you are in Melbourne, these guys are located in Richmond, and I guarantee you I have never sent someone to Peps who he hasn't been able to fix.
Bless you.
Peps is also one of our customers. So you've got 2 properties now, is that right?
Well, just going on to our third.
Onto your third.
Yes.
Cha, bro.
Yes. So thank you very much.
So Peps actually has a little bit of an interesting journey. So obviously we're first home specialists. So a lot of the clients who come to us are looking to buy a principal place of residence to begin with, where you guys have gone the investment property route and then looking to get into your PPR or your principal place of residence after that. So we're definitely going to talk a little bit about that. But I guess just to begin with, let's get a bit of background about you for the listeners. So you're originally from NZ.
Yes.
Did you play for the All Blacks?
Well, firstly, thanks, Lee, for this opportunity. It's always a privilege to obviously have this opportunity to obviously talk to someone like yourself, but also share my journey. A little bit about me. From New Zealand. My wife and I moved here in 2015. No, I didn't play for the All Blacks. Obviously, like every Kiwi, you have the opportunity to you strive for great things, and obviously, like most males in New Zealand, obviously the All Blacks is the pinnacle. No, I didn't make the All Blacks. So, but look, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of players that are associated with the All Blacks. That's obviously where my career has kind of spanned to. So. We moved here 2015 with the opportunity to just broaden our skills. Like most Kiwis, or like Mexicans over here, you know, we see the light, and we all move here to migrate for greater things.
To the West Island.
100%. And don't get me wrong, as much as I miss home, a lot of us that move here, we know that there's bigger things for us. So my wife and I were quite driven individuals, and any opportunity that comes to us, we take with both hands, and that's what we've done. To be honest, we never anticipated to run a business. It wasn't actually a thing that came to my head. I was just really passionate about what I do, working in sports, working with professionals, and then we've kind of created a model that kind of caters to your everyday people. So that's what we've been working on for the last 10 years, and now we've built a team that's getting close to 40 people, but you know, it's just a number. We're just trying to create a model that's more sustainable and create a product that's very catered to your everyday performer. So whether you're rich or poor, we're trying to make sure that everyone has the best healthcare. So what that looks like, it's always changing every day, and that's where finding people like yourself who can motivate us, push us to think a little bit different, has allowed us to kind of keep changing, keep adapting, and keep being better as well. So back to your point in terms of, I guess how we fell into the connection. Obviously, I had the opportunity to meet you as a client, and then like most people, it always comes to trust, because you're spending a lot of money in terms of your into property particular. We didn't have the experience. So, Rachel and I, we are values people. And so when we got to meet you outside of the clinic, we wanted to make sure that we can really trust you. And that was probably the biggest thing for us. And I can speak on behalf of a lot of people where, buying a property is quite a big thing. It's a big risky thing, and to be honest, I knew getting to know you, your values aligned with us in terms of, it wasn't about actually buying the property that caught my attention. Was you asked us the questions around our behaviors around our financial literacy, and that's probably what made us kind of think and reflect quite. Daily, and because it made us realize we're actually not prepared to actually invest into a property. So we actually started to change probably a year from that conversation that you had with us about, how do we look at money? How do we even spend money? And we realized there was a lot of things that we had to clean up with our own behaviors. I think you mentioned at the time that we suffer in this world of I think you used the words,
Lifestyle creep.
lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
And I felt like for us, because we're business owners, I wouldn't say we fell into that lifestyle creep, but we felt the pressures of running a business and lived a day to day. So as much as we had big dreams, we knew that we weren't ready to invest into a business. Even though we had saved money, we knew that we had to clean behaviors. So that were simple things like, our groceries, how we pay our rent, our lifestyle of going out. We were probably buying out a lot of takeaway. When you've got the luxuries of Uber Eats, you're always busy, you're always, you realize that actually adds up. So when we started to take it serious about, investing into a property, we knew we had to clean up a lot of our behaviors. And once we did that for a good year, we realized we're actually in a better position from a mindset, knowing that when we spend this money, we were prepared for the risks that were involved. But having that conversation with you planted the seed of, it wasn't just about putting money to you, it was about making sure that our behaviors matched it as well. So that was probably where the trust and the connection really kind of gave us that mindset to think, okay, you can't just throw money. Are we even ready to spend this money?
So before you got into your first property, where were you at mentally? Because I think you guys were considering maybe a principal place of residence that was going to cost a lot of money. So kind of talk me through where you were at mentally.
Yeah, good question. At the time, I think, firstly, we were going through COVID.
Yeah.
And as most business owners going through that journey, you're thinking of survival. And so we were fortunate that being married to Rachel, who thinks future and saving, where for me, I'm a very spend in front of me. So I had to really give myself some, financial education as best as I could. I'm not the biggest numbers person. I'm a very emotionally driven person. So Rach had to really equip me with basic tactics. But anyway, to answer your question, we obviously wanted to buy our first dream home. But because we didn't understand the market very well in terms of that you can buy investments, we probably were so fixated on if we're going to spend our hard-earned savings on we wanted to spend our hard-earned savings on our first property and live in it. But it wasn't until we met you that you gave us some options to obviously look into investments where obviously we weren't going to be bogged down by the mortgage of what you'd spend if you'll pay, because we wanted to live in Richmond. Obviously paying anything, $1 million was going to be a bit too far stretched for us, particularly being our first. And then at the same time, COVID, like we actually had no income for a year. And so we literally, we didn't actually look good to the banks.
Yeah.
So for us, that probably made us, it gave us our hand to think other options.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we weren't keen to invest or put $1 million in a mortgage, knowing that the economy wasn't obviously looking in our favor.
Yeah, and I mean, COVID in Victoria had such a huge impact, particularly for business owners. And what are we now? We're 5 or 6 years on from it.
Yes.
And I obviously go back between Queensland and Victoria quite a bit because we've got a business in both places. And it's just now, like for people who are listening to this at a different time, we're in the middle of the Australian Open.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first time that I've come to Melbourne and seen it fully back to life. So with, people are out, they're happy, there's a buzz around the city. But, for years when I was coming down post-COVID, there was a whole heap of negativity. Like Melbourne wasn't itself.
Yeah.
But it's really good to see it coming back. But as a business owner, how did COVID affect you guys?
Gosh, it's there's so many things I can talk about, but it was tough, honestly. Like because we're a service-based industry and we got heavy touch points in terms of consumer-driven. It was hard because so much was out of an employer model. It was very the government, because of everything, all the grants and everything, it was gated to employees. So I guess it's nothing to bag employees. It was just more, it didn't give us security in terms of how we can actually plan out and actually project what the next couple of months look like. So because we didn't have enough cash flow, and because like, for example, contractors were getting the same as business owners, but yet we had the liability of staff.
Yeah.
And so, I can complain about this all day, but it was just more, it just made us work harder. And at the same time, we actually had to think smarter. So it probably pushed us a little bit, be a bit more creative. So to answer your question, it was tough. We're still in that battle of trying to survive right now. So we're actually not quite out of the woods, respectfully.
Yep.
And I know a lot of clinics are still suffering. The cost of just operation has gone higher. You got to cover wages. You got to, just to operate the whole place before you even pay yourself is like gone up 30%. So yeah, it's we're still trying to come up with ways of how to think tactically, but also sustainable. But that's the cost of running a business. People that run it do it for the fun of how to adapt, and we enjoy that. We enjoy adapting. And look, I love the challenges. It's definitely maybe lose a bit of hair to the front here, but I've really enjoyed it. Like, I feel really privileged to be in a position to lead, and to have staff. And look, I don't always get it right, but I have the mindset to always adapt. So yeah, we're still trying to get through. So to answer your question.
Nice. So coming back to property, initially you were thinking about buying your first home initially in Richmond. Yes. I think you guys had a look at Kew as well. And then what was the thing that made you shift away from buying a principal place of residence into looking at investment properties instead?
That's a really good question. I wish my wife was here as well.
Hey, one thing that I wanted to say just about Rach, who's your wife, and you were talking about the asymmetry in your relationship where she's sort of future focused and a bit more data driven, where you're kind of more emotional in the moment. That's probably not the best sum up. But, that sort of thing is really common in relationships. So something like 75% of our clients are a couple who's either had kids or thinking about having kids. And we often find that where we have one very data-driven person and one more emotionally driven person. And it's an interesting thing to try and get those two to meet to make decisions.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I was actually talking to someone about this the other day about how do Rachel and I connect. Well, firstly, I'm obviously Pacific Island descent, and we come from a culture where culturalistic. So, the way we survive is we survive on village instincts. So my money is your money. We're acts of service. So, for example, we don't come from the background of saving $100,000 just for myself. I save, what I can and give what I can in the time that I have. Where Rachel's culture, no disrespect, comes from the method of saving, which is great. But our cultures, we had to align. So that's why I'm like that. So I guess I'm rich in heart. May not look it in the bank account, but that's just my custom. But because we live in Australia and New Zealand, we can't live like that. So where we call the, colonized way of thinking is very individualistic. And I mean that respectfully, because you're saving for the future. Our culture is very, let's save, enjoy for the day. So two very different. But, that's where Rachel and I have got to, talk it out and prioritize what's really important. And so, and that's where living in Australia and New Zealand helps us really realize that, we actually got to save here. We can't live the culturalistic lifestyle, because we won't get ahead. So yes, it's nice to serve and give back, but we've got to make sure that we actually can get through it as well. I never came from wealth, so we're first generation. So I guess our parents worked hard to get us to where we are. So we feel like we're in this position of making sure that we equipped ourselves to make sure that our next generation have the opportunity to have options. So right now, Rachel and I, we're the first. So we have to work hard to make sure that we can bulletproof our family and the legacy.
Yeah, there's probably two things that jump out to me there. The first one was, I remember, so when I was about 30 years old, I had less than no money, literally had negative money. And I got really interested in it. And for me, getting interested was I read a lot of books, but more importantly, I sought out people who had what I wanted. So, I had an uncle who was doing quite well and some other people. I'm like, how the hell are you guys doing this? And one thing that someone taught me was, when you have an well, for me anyway, when I didn't have anything, I was very much a similar kind of mindset where, what's mine is yours, give it away, try and make an impact, that sort of thing. And what this guy said to me, he said, Lee, you can't give away something you haven't got.
Yeah.
So if you want to look after people, the first person you need to look after is yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that jumped out to me with what you were saying, so you didn't come from a background of wealth.
No.
So in order for things to be different for you,
Yep.
you have to do things differently
Correct.
to how you're brought up. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. But that's super difficult for people because it's a completely different way of thinking.
Yep.
So let's get back to the original question before I got diverted off on a tangent, as I do. So what made you go from principal place of residence, we want to buy our own home and live in it, to then looking at investments going, maybe this is a better way forward?
Good question. So a lot of it came down to lending capacity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't, like I said before, because of COVID, we didn't look good to the banks.
Mm-hmm.
And as business owners, it's so tough to even get some kind of security when you first started.
Yep.
And the other thing is, we didn't have a good history because obviously COVID just absolutely annihilated us. We went from literally 0 to 0 pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the money was just going into just covering us. So to answer your question, it looked like a better option and sustainable option for us to make sure that we can go into an investment option.
Yeah.
I think that's where it allowed us to kind of take our emotion out. But we also, as I said earlier, we trusted the process and we felt like we were in a position that we could back ourselves to go down this path.
Yeah.
And so that's why, as I said before, we had already done a lot of work on ourselves as a couple, but also really building our financial literacy around, how we spend money. So by the time we got to you, we knew that to make that decision to go down the investment side, we were already we backed ourselves knowing that this was going to be a good option for us.
And what you've done is this model, which is become a bit of a buzzword now, which is rentvesting.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, so there's a lot of social media influencers out there going, rentvest, you shouldn't buy. It's a terrible thing to do. It's all after tax money, whatever. And the thing that I really dislike about the rentvesting model is that quite often people say, I'm going to rent where I want to live and then I'm going to buy investments. But the issue is they don't actually do it. And I think what you guys did, which I really respected, was you're like, well, we've got this money. We know we need to do something.
Yep.
But you couldn't afford to buy necessarily where you wanted to buy. So what you've then done is you've actually gone out and invested, which I think is, funnily enough, is the thing that people forget about when they're rent vesting. They're like, I'll rent where I want to live. And then they just keep spending all of their money.
Yeah.
Whereas like you got your own financial backyard sorted out first. And then you decided this is the direction that we need to head. So tell me, what did buying your first property mean to you?
Well, firstly, just back to your point there, I think the thing I want to make clear is living in Melbourne, because you're in Metro, you're surrounded by people that obviously have the luxury to go buy their house because they have the banks of mum and dads. So you get a lot of people that are kind of feel pressure to go buy their first house. And I noticed that quite massive here. Where people felt like they needed to buy their own house from the get-go.
Yeah.
Where Rachel and I, we don't really fall into that kind of trap where we just live within our means and we just focus on us. So we knew what we could afford and we just stuck to our guns. Look, there was a lot of people that kind of question our decisions, but it's like being an athlete, right? You get lots of noise. You know what's good for you. You know what's good for your circle. You need to back it.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first part was, we knew that we had someone like you in our corner that we could talk to. We knew that you gave us advice that we could work on, which what we did, and we just went with it. We didn't worry about what other people thought. We knew that this was the right thing for us in the time that we had.
It's interesting you say that about the social pressure to buy a home. And I know I definitely felt that. So my first 2 or 3 properties, I think, were investment properties before I bought my first house. So I remember before I bought a home, like every time I would talk to my mum, she's like, have you bought a house? Have you bought a house? And it was just, I felt like I wasn't adulting properly. And it was like I was walking around with this almost this silent guilt in the background. I'm not sure I necessarily admitted that it existed, but every now and again, I'm like, God, I'm a bit of a loser. Like, honestly, that's how it makes you feel. And even when I bought investment properties, because I didn't own the home I lived in, I had the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, when I finally got into my own home, and I used the method that I believe you guys are going to use further on, where, my investment properties had gone up in value a lot. And then rather than having to save up the deposit for my principal place of residence, I was able to do it all with equity. So actual cash savings out of pocket to buy the home that I'm in now was basically next to nothing. It may have even been nothing.
Yeah.
And that's how, my house now isn't my dream house, but it's certainly a house that I'm really, really proud of.
Yeah.
But I was able to do that by building investment properties. But I think that the point of the story that I'm getting at here is, even with a couple of investment properties under my belt, and by any outside view, I'm doing reasonably well.
Yeah.
And I'm still sitting there beating myself up, going, God, I'm a failure because I haven't got my own home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is very much a societal pressure thing. Like, from the second I could talk about money, that was the grief that I was getting from my parents. Hey, something you were mentioning before was you were getting information, advice, comments from people about where you were at. So what sort of information were you given by well-meaning people about finances as you were growing up, as you're looking to get into investments?
Yeah, man, that's. I think we obviously talk to a lot of people, obviously, as well as we were engaged with you as well, and a lot of people were so fixated on us buying our first home that we live in, which I could see the idea of, but Rachel and I weren't in that position to do that. So it was really hard because, as much as it sounded theoretically like a good idea, we just didn't have the means to do so. Like, obviously, we were tied to the business. We're still technically not really from here, so we still didn't really understand, anywhere outside of the business, like Richmond. Like, all I know is Richmond. I barely know any other area. So, to be honest, it wasn't like we got bad advice. It was just most people just said that you should buy and live in your first home. And obviously with all the benefits that you get with that. But, for us, we knew that, that wasn't going to be an option. We just weren't keen to have a mortgage over $1 million and just be suffering. Because a lot of our friends that bought places in Richmond, Kew, in that area, we saw that they struggled to even have a lifestyle. Just because obviously they had put down everything that they had towards their dream house, but yet they were suffering mentally because of the stress of trying to make repayments. So we kind of observed the behaviors of a lot of our surroundings, and then we just knew that we didn't want to live like that, because we had already prioritized making sure that the business and the staff were surviving.
So what did you find difficult to make sense of in property? What didn't you understand?
Lots of things. Like, I'm still learning it. Property is such an industry that it's this is where I can speak for a lot of people who have come from humble backgrounds. It's scary because we didn't come from wealth, and yet buying a home is so expensive. The risk is massive.
Yeah.
So, but like anything, if your mindset to money is not obviously cleaned up, then you're always going to think like that. So, to be honest, because you kind of planted the seed in our minds a year or so beforehand, we had to do a lot of self-work. Like, I couldn't just spend money. I had to realize, I had to actually look at myself and go, okay, if I want this house or buy any investment that's going to make me spend a lot of money, hard-earned money, I have to really clean up some of my behaviors. And I actually did that. So that's probably the biggest blessing that you actually gave us, because it made us look at our marriage and realize we're actually doing a lot of unnecessary spending. And so that's where we just went back to who we are and started living within our means. So, we didn't need to get Uber Eats most days of the week, or go out for dinners, or go out partying and things like that. We realized we're falling into that trap of the lifestyle of Melbourne. It's just, you want to go catch up with people. The pressures, the social pressures, as you mentioned before, it's real. And working in healthcare and seeing so many young athletes, I see it in them. Just what their mates are up to, rather than looking in their own backyard. So that's where, for us, we live rent free now. Well, you know what I mean? Like in our
Yeah.
heads, we're really comfortable with what we have. Now, we don't live a luxurious lifestyle. We live very frugal in a way where we're really content. You know, we're faithful to our church, our work, our marriage, and those are really big things for us. And that's what allows us to make those kinds of decisions.
Yeah. It's funny, as you get older, you kind of realize the things that are important in life. And, you think it's like going out, partying, going to restaurants, all of that stuff. But really, the thing that matters is, well, to me anyway, is the connections that you have with other people.
Yep.
So it's almost, obviously this is a podcast about property, so it's not quite this, but it's moments like this where you're one-on-one with the people that you care about most, talking about whatever you're talking about, life, whatever it is, but sharing life with other people.
Yeah.
And most of that stuff, it happens, like we were at a park the other day with your friends and their young kid. We're just chilling out. And that to me, as I've got older, I've realized that's what matters most, not the showing off stuff so much.
Yeah, and that's and that's where, like, if with property, I feel like you got to clean up yourself first before you kind of look to kind of make that kind of investment. Just because you want to make sure when you spend that money, you understand the risks really clearly in your head. So that, for example, we knew that, okay, if we spend our hard-earned money, we've done all our work, but we know that there's risks involved here. So we kind of already were quite prepared for what could happen. Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like there were a couple of stages. So there was one stage where you kind of wanted to get into your own your own home to live in, but you realized that it was potentially out of reach for you, and you were just flirting around with that idea. So that was one period. Then there was another period where you decided, hey, we need to clean up our financial act, so to speak. And then there was a period afterwards when you're in property. So when you were in that period where you knew you wanted a property, so that first bit, but you didn't know where to start, how did you feel like when you knew you wanted something, but you didn't know how to get it?
It's frustrating because we want things now. But and so that's why for us, we knew, like, okay, this is obviously, like dreams, right? You realize you got to put steps to get there. And so we just had to apply that same principle of how we run the business. Like, it's the same thing to buying the property. It was scary. It was frustrating at the same time, because it's just like you got to save X amount of money to get in the market. And so that's probably the main ones I would use. Like, we had done so much self-work. That was our priority for us. And people that know us as people were mental skills driven, like that values. So once we clean up ourselves, we know that we can do other things.
So before that year where you were getting your financial life in order, so if we think before that, did you find yourself hesitating or delaying around getting a property?
Big time.
Yeah.
Firstly, because we didn't come from a family where they were in the market of properties. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have friends like you. I hadn't met you before, so I didn't have people in my circle that could give me the knowledge and the tools that I could obviously back myself to do so. Rachel and I just happen to be quite curious individuals, and so we love learning from people, and we just hadn't met anyone of your caliber who could obviously walk us through the steps of all of the risks and benefits of property. So yes, Rachel and I, we love learning about those kinds of things. So it's beforehand. We had no idea that we could do it. To be honest, like, we just, as part of age, we realized, okay, the next steps for us is obviously get into the market. Yes, and we got to that crossroads of, like, okay, this comes with costs. Obviously, the banks got to like us as well. Their banks didn't like us. And so, and that's what we learned. And so we realized, okay, so if the banks don't like us, what needs to change? And so we started to ask ourselves a lot of questions as a couple, and then obviously each other individually as well. So, and you'll hear me always coming back to us, blaming, we put us, accountable for decisions that we make.
Yep.
And that's just who we are. Yeah.
So
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So you've spoken quite a bit about your background and that you haven't come from wealth and your family wasn't into property. So what sort of assumptions did you then arrive at based on that? Either about getting into property, what your first property should be, like
Yeah.
what did that background instill in your head that maybe you had to change?
Good question. I think growing up, you're always dreaming, and so I guess I was really privileged. I went to a really good school. I was surrounded by friends who came from, financial security, best way to put it, where I became quite close with their parents, where they're like my second mum and dads, and so I got to.
You got a rugby scholarship, is that right?
Yeah, so obviously I went to a school that was obviously academic and obviously provided rugby as well. They wouldn't say rugby scholarship, but the main thing was, it's kind of like that saying where, the power of education is not knowledge, it's action. So I have high curiosity. So for me, I've just always been that kind of person where I always looked at my environment now and then where can I be? So I've always been like that as a kid. People that know me know that I've always been quite driven. And so when you grow up with not much, and I guess when you're young, that's enough. But when you look at your friends' lives and you start comparing, you start realizing, okay, I can see the position that we're in. Now, without trying to victimize myself, I'm okay, cool, I need to take ownership here. And you realize that I am the next generation to start making changes. And that's when I started to ask more questions about how they live, how they got there. And that's when the seed was planted. Okay, I need to do a lot of education and knowledge building to even get to that kind of position to even buy a house.
Yeah.
And so back to your point, it was more, I knew that when the time comes for buying a house, I'd be ready, but I knew that I had to do a lot of growing up to get there. And this is what we talked about, learning as a human, be educated, but also how to use my skills and how to be a good person, how to talk to lots of people, how to listen, how to adapt. So all those were key skills getting to where we having the properties now.
Yeah. Makes me think back. There's this thing that, again, I learned in my 30s where there's no difference between you, me, the guy out there. So if you find someone who's got what you want, if you learn what they do, so what their habits are, if you do what they do, you're going to end up with something approximating what they've got. And I think a big mistake that people make is they think that there's something special about other people or that things in this world are out of reach. Yeah. And I come from the point of view, and I could be delusional, but that's fine. I'm happy to live in the delusion that nothing in this world is out of reach. Yeah. It's just someone knows something that you don't know. Yeah. So if you want to get involved in it, you need to find out what it is. So that curiosity that you talk about, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, and that's and that over time, that's obviously going to take you places. So,
but it takes time, right? All the best things, again, going from my teens and 20s into my 30s, and particularly, oh God, I'm in my 40s.
Still young.
Mate, I'm starting to get deep in my 40s.
I'm 40 next year.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh, Char, bro, look at your face. You look like you're about 20.
Bless you.
So the older I get, I think what I've worked out is the really good things in life, like the real juice of life. Yeah. Takes time. Yeah. And it was so when I met you was still in my pro athlete days, which was many years and about 20 kilos ago. But what that really taught me, and I mean, triathlon taught me so much about life, but triathlon, I had to work at something for years and years and years before I got good at it. Yep. And what it made me realize is anything truly worthwhile, you've got to put in a lot of time. But when you actually end up with it, it's long lasting. Yep. And the same it goes with, financial success. And if I'm to make a quick comparison here, a lot of people can go out and get a car loan for a really expensive car. But it's kind of like going out and getting drunk. Like it feels good for a day and then it feels terrible afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with financial success. So going out and getting that car might feel amazing in the moment, but when when you build up a property portfolio and you start to get lasting financial security.
Yeah.
You don't feel good for a little while. It's like you go to a new level,
Yeah.
and this is now my new normal.
Yeah, exactly. There's a saying that goes, people like to emulate what they see, but not ask the questions how they got there. So as I got older, I probably started asking more intentional questions rather than the superficial questions of, oh, that's a nice house. Asking, okay, cool. Asking questions like, cool, what are the steps that I can do to obviously get started? So my questions actually became a lot more, I guess, personal and thorough. And it allowed me to kind of, okay, cool, this is actually a meaningful conversation. I'm actually getting something out of this. And that's how I kind of live my life now. Like when I talk to people, be really intentional. No, don't ask the sugar stuff. Ask the effort, how they got there. And this is the same kind of approach how I talk to my athletes. That's cool that you achieved something, but I want to talk about how your effort to get there was at a capacity where you could push yourself. So those kinds of principles. So the questions are really important, and that's kind of what's helped us kind of cipher the good and the bad.
Yeah, it's like people look at the outcome, so they look at the nice house and they're like, "Oh, I want that," but they don't want all of the hard work that it took to get there.
They don't ask those questions. They don't ask me, like, for example, this the other day, someone asked me about the properties, and I obviously I shared, and I normally don't share anything, and I said, oh, and they started saying, oh, whoa, that's amazing. And I said to them, yeah, ask me how I got there. Like, don't ask those kinds of questions and then have an assumption that you're probably thinking that I've got lots of money. Start asking how I got there, because it wasn't easy. So it's just the context of like, just, it's like the effort. Don't just glamorize what you see. Talk about how they got there. Like athletes, if you're an amazing sprinter, talk about the training they did to achieve that. So that's kind of like what's helped us big time.
And I think this is something that people don't realize with business owners. So people go, oh, business owner, you've got to be loaded.
Yeah.
But you have no idea all the work, responsibility, heartache that went into it.
Yeah.
But people also don't realize how boom and bust it is.
Yeah.
Like you're killing it one day and then through no fault of your own, like COVID, for example, you slit your wrist the next day.
Yeah. We could talk all day about that one.
So tell me, what made you decide to purchase through us rather than going it alone?
Again, we felt like we needed to do it with someone. We felt like we needed our hand held. And when you don't come from a background of, as we've just talked about, financial, literacy, portfolio of properties, like we didn't have anyone that was clued up around this. So when we were asking questions of people that we thought were good, they just didn't sound convicting to us. So as I said earlier, firstly, cleaned up ourselves. And then when we were ready, we knew that we can ask you the right question. So to be honest, it was based on trust. That's why we came to you guys. We did talk to a lot of other people, and we actually came to the decision based on our values. And because you planted that seed for us, we knew that it wasn't just about property for you. You were quite curious in terms of, are we even ready to make this step? And that's what I probably appreciated the most.
Yeah.
And that's where I've always been a big supporter of what you guys are doing, just because, I think that's really important for people like I who don't come from that background. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of many people, is that it is trust. But, it's having the right people to guide you there. And that's you've always been someone, that's saying the rising tide lifts all the boats, and that's where I've always respected someone like you. So it was a no-brainer, to be honest. But I did do my security checks in terms of asking other people in the industry, and I went with values.
Yeah,
like you've always looked beyond, and I've noticed other people that have talked to you that are referred have all said the same thing. You've asked them similar questions to us, so that's when I realized, oh, that's amazing that he actually dives a little bit deeper into who they are, if this is even the right decision for them.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
I often talk about this with my staff when we're talking about first home buyers trying to get into the market. And when a first home buyer looks to get in the market, from the day they were born, everyone's telling them that they're never going to do it.
Yep.
So their parents are like, oh, I remember when I bought my house for 100 or 200,000 or whatever it was.
Yep.
It's just impossible now. Prices are out of control. Yep. It's got to stop. You've got the government who's getting up going, oh, young people can't afford a house. You've got the media who's sitting there going, you will never buy a home. So you get this generation coming through who has had everyone say buying a home is impossible. And then when you have someone like us come along and say, hey, you know what, this is possible. Yeah. People don't go, oh, it's amazing, this is possible. Instead, what they do is they kind of look at us and they go, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? And there is this distrust. And it's one of the biggest things that my guys that work for me need to establish with people is people aren't going to listen to you until they know that they can trust you. Yeah. And the only way you're going to get that trust is to understand them. But understanding someone isn't just understanding, they want a 4-bedroom house. That's mechanics. Anyone can go out and do that. What understanding people is about is it's about us understanding the emotional journey that they're on. What are the fears? What's stopping them from moving ahead? What have they been told? And when you understand someone on that level, the house and everything else becomes easy. But that's where we need to begin with clients. Anyway, that was really kind that you said those things. I appreciate it.
I mean every word.
How would you describe the process once you committed to going forward?
Now, this is probably a question that my wife won't answer. Because when it comes to administration, that is not my forte. But
how did you describe the process? I would describe it like this: I handballed it to Rach, and everything worked out.
But hey, this is I'm the connector. Rach obviously seals the deal.
Yep.
So that's just how our relationship works. Obviously, I'm a bit of an extrovert, and I love connecting. And obviously, it was like Rach had to trust you. And so when I finally put you guys in the room, that's when it was good because, Rach is very analytical. You were able to talk in her lingo in terms of numbers. And it was quite interesting. Because Rach didn't really trust me in a way where it was a big investment. Yep. But once you provided the numbers for her, she actually jumped on board. So it was quite interesting because I learned a lot about us as a couple. So I realized, okay, cool. But I'm not that type of person that cries about it, that I don't have those skills. I just know that, I can see why we're so bonded.
Yeah, well, you got to lean into your strengths, right?
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to your question, bless Rach, she did all of that for us. So, but she obviously updated everything that went through. But, it was very easy going, like, step by step. I know I had to do a lot of signing, but Maybe because I was connected to you, that you obviously gave us that opportunity to make sure that, we read through all the terms and conditions. But, it was awesome because you gave us hope. And so the motivation and the excitement was there all the way through. So particularly with our first one. So we felt like your team actually held our hand all the way through. So I felt like it was a very smooth process, even though Rach did a lot of the administration side. But I did felt like you guys were, step by step, taking us through the process when the land was ready, then the building, and then also making it to the day we got the keys.
Were there any moments in there that you found challenging?
Probably the timeline of it. I think it's just like, you fall into that pattern of wanting everything now. Yeah. But then you realize, okay, this is a process, from your end in terms of finding the blocks for us and then making sure that you got the right builders and things like that. So to be honest, like, we learned a lot from that process. We knew that, okay, this doesn't just happen overnight. Yeah. So that's probably the only thing I'd say that was like worrying. But I feel like because we had such high trust, the reassurance from your team was obviously kept us at bay, knowing that it was happening. And that obviously allowed us to, stay calm, but also trust the process as well.
Yeah, I find that happens with a lot of our clients. So there's this big emotional pressure cooker to the moment where they go, all right, we're going to do this. And then once people have made the decision, they're like, well, give me the outcome right now. Yep. And the problem is that, building a home takes time, particularly in Queensland where you've got delays on registration. The land might not be ready for 6 or 9 months. And then in that period where you're waiting for it to come to reality,
Yeah.
the excitement wears off. And for a lot of people, doubt starts to creep in and they start to question themselves.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's a good point that you make, that you've got to trust the process. You get to that decision point, and then you've got to trust that it will all work out.
And that's probably where your team did a good job of just holding our hand to ensure that, reassuring the steps. And I felt like getting those updates as well was obviously really helpful as well, to know where the stages, what was happening.
Yep.
And that like I said, we trusted the process. So we just knew that we just had to, in God's timing, that things were going to unfold. Yeah.
How did you feel after you completed the first purchase?
It was excitement. Like, we were just like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And, we felt just immense of gratitude and thankfulness that we got there. Cause, it was because, like, as I said before, we'd done so much hard work to get there that we were just celebrating that win of effort to get there. So it was almost like we didn't even celebrate the house purchase. We celebrated the effort and just acknowledge that, wow, we did it. And the fact is that we did it. We know that other people can do it if they focus on themselves first, not worrying about what other people think of them. So to answer your question, we were just really grateful, and we're just so blessed that we met you and got to meet your team, and that's why we're big supporters of you guys, and just immense gratitude.
What do you feel you understand differently now? So you're 2.5 properties in. We're about to settle on the third one in a couple of months. So what do you understand differently now compared to when you first started?
I feel like I wouldn't change any other pathway for us to get to where we are. I felt like we did what we needed to do in terms of the learning part of ourselves, but everyone can go down this journey.
Yeah.
But in their time. And that's the really important part, is that you don't need to buy a house as soon as you're 17. Make sure that, you're happy, your life is in order, then make those big decisions. So in terms of what I've learned, probably just more about just obviously asking lots of questions and just obviously asking more questions about, that are really intentional, that work in favor of your lifestyle, current situation. That's what helps.
I mean, not to put words in your mouth, but I think two things that I kind of took out of that is, number one, you've got to have belief.
Yeah.
And I think once you've got some evidence, you're like, hey, this isn't just for other people, it's for me as well.
Yeah.
And I think the other one in there, which is really important, is it's never too late.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people get into their 30s and they're like, I've missed the boat here.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, you haven't missed the boat. In fact, most people we're talking to, our typical client is 30 to 40 years old.
Yeah. But like saying that, of course, we would have wished we'd done it earlier. But then I felt like, we have enjoyed our 20s doing the things, that we did. I guess partying or just being in your 20s. So I feel like I wouldn't change anything. But it's awesome to be at the stage where now we can obviously help encourage others to if they're in the position to do, start considering it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met another person, myself included, who's bought property and hasn't gone, oh, I wish I had had that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
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 For sure. So what do you think someone similar to you before you started would be struggling with most?
Good question. I mean, we've obviously expanded on a lot about it. It's just your mindset, to be honest. A lot of it is how you look at property, but then you look at the financial backing to support that.
So if you were to try and sum that up in a sentence, how would you sum it up?
If I was to sum it up, is that you can get into the property game.
Yep.
It's just that you've got to do a lot of self-work to get there.
Yep.
And self-work is obviously the financial literacy.
Yeah.
And having more curiosity how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I looked at that, you've got to change your mindset and some of your behaviors.
Yeah.
So you can do it.
Yeah.
But you need to learn to look at money differently.
Yes.
And to believe it's possible for you.
Yes.
And I think if you begin with that belief where you're like, hey, this isn't for other people, it's for me too.
Yeah.
Once you've got that belief, you're able to then change your behaviors.
Yes.
Which then ends up at the outcome.
Yeah. It's kind of like that saying about who you hang out with, but your friend group. If you got friends who are in property, ask them lots of questions.
Yeah.
And hang around them, asking more questions how they got there. And that's going to
100%.
get you places.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's that saying is really, really true.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends earlier weren't even in property.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were up to other things. So that's where probably my behaviors was down that path. I wasn't even thinking about property. So, and this is kind of like where I've learned a lot about myself as a human. And I guess we don't get the luxury of like having a background where you got family members who are in the property game and, you know, how to invest, all those things. I've had to learn that as I've got older. And so, you know, I'm really grateful that, you know, now I can obviously think a little bit broader, more macro, and I can understand macro and micro thinking in terms of the economy, but also where our situation is. So I feel like a lot of people just need to really, if they want property, you got to actually ask lots of questions around property. You know, how can I get there? What are things I need to do to improve to get there? Where's my current state in terms of financially, but also am I happy with where I'm at? You know, can you ever go back to your job? You can start talking to your employers. I'm actually wanting to buy property. How are steps that I can improve so that I can obviously be useful here in the business, but also how I can grow. So it does kind of macro to micro change your behaviors because you start thinking, cool, I'm thinking about property. What are behaviors that I can actually start putting in order now to get there?
So I didn't make this up, but I got it from somewhere. So you show me the 5 people you hang around most.
Yes.
And I'll show you your personality.
Yep.
And the thing that people do is they hang around with mates who are at a similar level. So if my mates don't own property, and I say I'm about to buy a property, nearly every single one of those will start telling me what I need to watch out for, start giving me advice on it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if I take your advice, there's a good chance that I'm going to end up exactly where you are, which is renting for the rest of my life. So if you want to change who you are, you've kind of got to change who you hang around with. If you want to get into property, talk to someone who's got 3-4 properties. I don't think any of those people would tell you not to do it. They'd encourage it.
It's kind of like with business owners, like, you know, you think you'd be scared to ask other business owners for advice, and it's quite amazing how much would actually give up their time to help you. So, for example, in COVID, I was the same way. Like I said, I didn't come from business. Everything that we've done has gone from natural instincts, but also values. And so when we're going in a position of COVID, I actually reached out to even yourself and about 20 other business owners. And I just talked to them about their journey, how they got there, and if they have staff, how do they navigate these kinds of, you know, situations. And it was quite interesting. All of them actually made the effort to talk. And it's the same thing. Like if people want property, people will make time to actually give you advice.
Yeah.
And
because you respect the hustle, you respect the journey.
100%.
You had to go through it.
100%.
And I think once you get there, you want to encourage people to feel the same things that you're feeling.
Big time. And that's what it goes back to. And it's just like people will actually sit down and tell you the steps of what their journey was.
You got to be humble enough to ask for the help.
Yes, exactly that. Curiosity.
So we'll wrap this conversation up. We've kind of answered this question already, but I like to ask it to all guests at the end of the potty. If you were to give one single piece of advice to someone looking to get into their first home, what would it be?
You can do it, firstly. But you know, you got to be prepared to put in the work to get there. That's honestly, I'm very much of like, you got to make sure that your life is in order. And to do that, you got to start asking lots of questions in terms of your financial state, but also where you are from a working context, home environment. Make sure that those things are you're happy with. And then, yes, you can actually go down this venture of investment property. So, yes, you can do it, but it comes with effort.
So, Peps, thanks very much for coming in. If people have sporting injuries that they want to fix, whereabouts can they find you?
Oh, bless you. We're in Richmond, and we just lead from the heart. That's it. So
you're on Instagram.
We're on Instagram.
What do people look up?
Kinematics, health and performance.
Kinematics, health and performance.
Yes. So we're just on the quest on just trying to do good work, like every other clinic that's out there. But hey, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's always a blessing to catch up and obviously to be like this. You know, I don't think I've talked to you like this.
Yeah.
So no, thank you.